Welcome to the Glassing Hour, a hunting and outdoors photography podcast. I'm your host, Ben Page, and each week I'm going to be sitting down with some of the best photographers. And we're going to be dissecting their style, their equipment, techniques, and their work. But most importantly, we're going to hear their stories. All right, so for this week's Glassing Hour, I got Zack Boughton on, who is with Montana Wild and the hunting photographer. How you doing, Zack?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm happy to have you on here. You're a good fit for the Glassing Hour because you're doing it in a much more professional and organized manner of what I'm trying to help neophyte photographers such as myself do. Yeah, obviously we're a little more experienced.
We think we're doing that.
Right. So for people that aren't familiar with what the hunting photographer is, what would be the executive summary of that? What's the quick elevator pitch on it?
It's basically an online course and mentorship that is going to give you all the kind of foundational elements to become a professional outdoor photographer. It's obviously catered towards hunting photography, but it really covers outdoor photography, whether you want to do hunting photography or not. But it just gives anyone, it seems like younger individuals, all the tools that they need to kind of enter into the space in a professional way and kind of know how to navigate some of the obstacles that will come up when wanting, to pursue an occupation of shooting photos professionally in the hunting industry. So it's been cool to put together content, and I think we've had about 25 or 26 students so far that have signed up and either have completed the course or went through it. And it's just been cool to see the progress in some of those individuals and some of the networking that they're doing and working together, and just there's a lot of cool things that they'll be doing this fall. So it'll be even more rewarding to have these kinds of conversations, I think, next spring, January, February, March, when hunting season's over, and we kind of have some more tangible results of helping some guys and gals out. So
yeah. Well, now before we head down the road any further, I think we should look in the rear view and put her in reverse. And where are you from?
I grew up in North Idaho, the Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls area, and didn't grow up hunting or fishing. Kind of started doing that when I came to Montana. Went to school out here in Bozeman, and I don't know, just felt like the lifestyle and the vibe of the culture between Montana and Idaho is quite a bit different. I mean, now that I've lived in both places, I don't think it was. It was probably just the sphere of people I hung out with, but I just felt like I needed to try to experience hunting and fishing and just see what it was all about. And so it was kind of all downhill from there. As soon as I started fishing and hunting, it was just 110%. And so, long story short, that just led into using some of the skills that I had to create content, to start creating content in the hunting and fishing space. And people liked it, and I was going to school for business, and we ended up just creating a media company called Montana Wild. And so my brother Travis and I did that from about 2011 to now. The business is kind of a little up in the air. My brother got married a year ago, so his path has shifted a little bit.
Darn brothers, man.
But that stuff happens, man. And so I don't know what the future of Montana Wild will be at this point in time, but it's been a great vehicle for learning a lot and meeting a lot of people and inspiring a lot of people.
All right. So you obviously
what's led me to where I'm at now a little bit. So
you picked up the camera before you picked up the rod and reel or the gun.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't really shot much for photos, but I'd filmed some skiing with Travis, who's my brother, and in high school, and I took a video editing class in high school, and Gabe Lawson was my teacher. Shout out to Gabe. he was the man. He taught us a bunch about just editing and kind of given us the skill set to go out and create and be able to make like a short video. And so we did a little bit of that in high school, made a handful of 1 to 3 minute, just us skiing, being total Jerry's on the mountain. And so I had some pretty minimal experience, but I did have a little bit of time behind a camera before I started hunting and fishing.
So what'd you pick up first, the fishing or hunting?
I started fly fishing the summer before I started hunting, if I remember. No, it might have just been the summer. I started fishing first. If I remember correctly, I started fly fishing like late spring and then fished all summer on Rock Creek. And then we went on like one big hunting trip that fall. Now that I think about it, I'm actually wrong. I took my dad. So when we lived in Post Falls, we actually shot rifles and handguns. My dad had bought guns. I wouldn't really say as an investment purpose, but just to have and just to like invest some of his money into. I mean, if you buy the right guns, they do hold their value fairly well. But
yeah,
just that said, we shot rifles and handguns a fair bit, which was awesome. And so when my parents bought a cabin over in Montana on Flathead Lake, I actually took the rifle for a walk by myself a couple days before I started fly fishing. So I guess I did start hunting first, but I didn't really take it seriously until after I started fly fishing. So it's kind of complicated, but.
So what was your first hunt?
I mean, I was just walking around behind my parents' place looking for whitetails, but then our first real hunt where we had success and really got hooked was going out to the High Line of Montana. And our friend Tyler, his dad was a cattle rancher up on the High Line and had some property. And Tyler grew up hunting a bunch. And so Travis met Tyler on Flathead Lake in the summer, and Tyler just was like, hey, you guys should come out and hunt on my ranch this fall. And so we went out there, my brother Travis, my dad, and myself, and hunted for, I think, 4 days. We all shot bucks, shot pheasants, did some coyote hunting. Like, it was just a blast. And from there, I mean, we were just hooked 110%. And I was like, all right, what's next? Like, I want to hunt elk. I just started doing research, and it was like, all right, well, if you want to hunt elk, then bow hunting's the best way to do it. So like the next May, I think I drove to Billings like 5 hours and bought a bow off Craigslist from some dude. And that next fall I was hunting elk with a bow. So.
Wow. And now what made you choose Bozeman for college?
I mean, I was a smart kid in high school, but I wasn't very smart about applying or thinking about college. And so I've somehow missed deadlines for quite a few of the schools. And so you like sit down with your counselor and they're like, hey, are you thinking about applying for school and blah, blah, blah. And so it ended up being like, well, you missed the deadline for most of the local, Idaho and Washington and Oregon, but, Montana State, they're still open. I was like, oh, they got a film program. Oh, there's sick skiing. Like, sign me up. And so that's really what drew me to Bozeman was I could ski a bunch and they had a film program and I liked film. And so I think I thought I was going to get into like ski films, when I left high school and enrolled at Montana State. And so that's kind of what brought me to Bozeman originally.
I think people are going to start accusing me of being like the Bozeman Department of Tourism podcast because I think you're my like third or fourth maybe person I've talked to from Bozeman area.
It's a hub of, I mean, it's probably one of the biggest locations as far as like just the sheer number of people that are within the hunting industry, which is cool and really not cool at the same time.
Yeah, so, you feel like it's a little
rabbit hole, but there's a lot of people in the hunting industry here in Bozeman area.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's on one hand, it's the kind of the place to be if you're going to be in doing that kind of thing, or do you feel like it's a little saturated? Or
It's nice because there's a lot of people that share common interests, and there's a lot of cool people, or people that you can relate to and would hang out with, whether they were in the industry or not. And then I guess the bad part about it is that people in different brands and different parts of the industry are very tribal, and it feels like high school kind of cliques and groups of people. And then you just get those people that they're here to be part of the scene, and it's like, I don't know, it's kind of a turnoff for me. Like, oh, I moved to Bozeman just to be like cool and in with the in crowd. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not why you should move to Bozeman.
Groupie-esque or something.
Very much so, yeah.
If I moved to Bozeman right now, I would be a groupie, I feel like. But
yeah. I'd probably still hang out with you, but I would characterize it that way.
Yeah, right. Like, oh well, I have no ties to Bozeman, and yeah, I'm no meat eater. We'll say that. But yeah, absolutely. So, when did you guys start this hunting photographer thing?
So I really just the last few years, through Montana Wild. I mean, since we've really started Montana Wild, I bet our number one question has always been, how did you get to where you're at, or what cameras do you use, and how, do you go about doing what you do and creating this? And so obviously there's a big want and need for a better understanding of the craft and the business of it. And so it's really been the last few years that I've just, in the back of my head, kind of been thinking about what's a good way to share some of that information. And the catalyst, I think, for me feeling that way was working with some younger guys who have interned with us in the past, like Sam Averett and Calvin Connor and Keith and a few other guys that have come in and interned with us, and we've showed them some things, given them some guidance, given them some mentorship, and then they've went out on their own and just been really successful and accomplished a lot and become great freelance photographers and filmmakers. And so, that's kind of a little bit more fuel on the fire to just help more people. It's definitely way more rewarding to help other people, in my opinion, than it is to accomplish things on your own. Obviously, you want to accomplish things on your own in life as well, but I think both of those things just led me to wanting to do more. And the world of e-learning is just a huge industry, and it's growing super rapidly, and people are just hungry for more information and using the internet to consume it. And so I was like, I'm going to create an online course to basically just teach people how to do this. For me, my path, I mean, I'm not going to do hunting photography for the rest of my life. And so, in some of the crossroads of where do you go in life and what do you want your career path and where do you want to be in 5 and 10 years? Just thinking more about it, I was like, well, if I found something else tomorrow and started doing that, I'd feel like there was all this talent and experience that got wasted. How can I kind of give back if I were to transition out of this? And it was like, I should share what I learned with other people. And so I came up with the idea for the hunting photographer, just to create an online course for people to learn really all the foundational tools to head out there and start making a name for themselves and getting paid to pursue photography. And so it was probably,
I suppose,
go for it.
I suppose before we get into the motivating stuff, I think it's really important for, as I envision myself being a photographer in the outdoor space, I I think about all the greats. It'd be great to do this. It'll be awesome. It'll be this. It'll be that. I think it's really important though, because anybody that spent any amount of time in any job knows that there's some drawbacks, or that there's some unmotivating things, or some difficult things that you'll encounter that really take the sheen off of a shiny dream. And I think it's really important to address those kind of things. How do you feel about that?
I think, in the course, we start out with the foundation. It's the first module is called the why, and it's basically a handful of videos that is created to ask the hard questions of like, why are you doing this? Because if you're not motivated, if you don't have some passion, some mission with your work, you're not going to make it, and like what we did, Travis and myself, that came from a passion of wanting to share what we were experiencing and inspire other people. And that was our why. And that was what drove us. And still to this day drives us. And so, people need to have a comprehension of why it is they want to pursue it. Social media obviously makes it very appealing because you get to see all the best parts. I don't think people realize the amount of work that goes into being a photographer, the amount of jockeying that goes on to get jobs. For some guys, they travel a lot. Other guys don't travel as much. I don't know. It's hard to say what the downsides are because everyone's different and everyone perceives certain things as either a positive or a negative differently. And then kind of the scope of work for photographers across the board's pretty drastically different. Like Stephen Drake's lifestyle versus Ted Wells, he just had on the podcast, totally different lifestyles and business models. And, it's two totally different things, both in the hunting industry though.
So what does, you talked about it. The first couple modules are the why, asking the hard questions about why you're doing this or what you're trying to get out of it. Can you kind of walk us through what somebody might experience as they navigate the course?
In what regard?
So, what do you, as we go through the course, what's kind of the experience that they'll be having? I picked up that there's a pretty big mentorship part on it, and that there's a set sort of structure to kind of navigating your photography and then business side of it.
Yeah, we structured the course. Obviously it took a long time to shoot the videos and to edit them, but probably the biggest investment of time into creating this was creating all the modules and all the lessons and writing out what it is we wanted to talk about and how does it flow so it makes sense. And so, we really just start out with that why and asking people, why do you want to pursue this? And if you can say, I want to pursue hunting photography, like what's your mission and who, like, do you want to do just waterfowl? Do you want to do elk? Like, what is your goal with your photography? Do you want to be known as a photographer for a specific reason? Like, what makes you unique? What brands do you think that type of work aligns with? Like, getting the wheels turning with all the younger individuals that I've worked with, either through internships or mentoring, just seems like the biggest hurdle for them is trying to get their brain to kind of lead the charge.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just gung ho and they want to I'm going to go out tomorrow, I'm going to shoot photos. And there's no direction. There's no thought. There's no time spent on, that direction, that creating a map, that you have to follow. And so that's kind of how our course starts out, is making sure that this is something you want to pursue. And then, we talk about internships and mentorships, and the course is kind of a little bit of both of those in a regard, but there's no replacement for going and working with someone for a few months or 6 months or a year, or finding a mentor that you can talk to on a monthly or weekly basis. And so we talk kind of through that so that people can navigate that if they want to outside of the course. And then, we talk about the lifestyle and the industry and try to give people a little bit of a broad brushstroke of kind of what this is going to be all about and why do you want to pursue it before we start diving into more of the nitty gritty details. And so, I mean, from there, it progresses into like module 2 is just about shooting photos and editing photos and workflow and kind of more technical stuff. And then, we touch on gear. And then the biggest, most valuable part of the course, in my opinion, is the business module. And that's really just, teaching people how to run their own business. As a freelance photographer, you are a small business owner and you need to be able to understand how to navigate a lot of different things. And there really isn't any other resource out there that talks you through it, especially with the perspective of the hunting industry. If you really want to invest a lot of time in doing a lot of research, you can piece it all together on your own. But, we give people a very cohesive, straightforward pathway. This is what you need to know to start, and you shouldn't really have too many big questions. It's more of just executing, once you've went through the course. So, right. And then we wrap it up with social media, because social media is just a huge component of content nowadays in marketing. So if you want to have at least a really solid foundation there.
Yeah, excellent. And so what are the prerequisites? What are the prerequisites if I'm just somebody that's, okay, hey, I want to be a better, I think I really want to kind of go into this. What would you say the right kind of person is that should consider the program?
Yeah. I mean, the program is definitely not for people that just want to, hey, I want to take better photos on my hunt. You could definitely take it and you'll learn to take better photos, but that's not what it's catered towards. I would say that this is more like a professionally focused course. Like on the website, I think I talk about 2 different individuals that we kind of had in mind. Like the first would be like that professional hobbyist, the guy that probably has been shooting photos for a few years and, maybe he's had a photo or 2 used somewhere or shared. Maybe he spent, some money and has a fairly nice camera and he likes doing it, or she, and just hasn't really transitioned in their head that like, oh, wow, like this is a passion of mine and I want to pursue it. Because, for a lot of people, it's a risk. I mean, you got to jump out there put yourself out on a limb a little bit to pursue it. And so that can be tough for some people. And we want to give them all the tools to be like, if you want to take that jump, like it's really just up to you of how hard you want to work, whether you'll succeed or not. It's not going to be a matter of, I didn't really know enough. And then, the other person we had in mind was really just someone who is in high school or in college and just thinks that, documenting and capturing those moments out hunting is what they want to pursue as an occupation. And they just want to hit the ground running. And, our course would be perfect for those guys as well. It's kind of like a college course. Like I feel like when you enroll in our course, it's like you're taking a college course on hunting photography. And, it's like, it's kind of all levels. It's like an all encompassing course that's going to give you the tools to just do it.
Yeah. And, you talked a little bit about the workflow, and I had no idea really what that meant or really how important it is to a photographer. I've started to do some local real estate photography to just kind of help expand my portfolio and kind of teach me what it's like to shoot for somebody paid.
Yeah.
And dude, it was too easy to go out and like take some good photos of some houses, do some wide angle lenses, get up on a ladder, get a shot that maybe somebody else hadn't, run the Matterport.
Yeah.
And then I got back to my house and I plugged in my thing. And usually I'm pulling 1 or 3 photos off because, I found 1 or 3 photos that I really want to save out of all that. And next thing I know, I'm like waiting for something to download. Now I'm editing some stuff in Lightroom and it's like transferring it over from, oh crap, this thing doesn't work. My hard drive doesn't work. I don't have enough space, and kind of navigating like, dude, it took me 5 times as long to upload, edit, download, and get the thing over to them than it took me to shoot.
Yeah. People don't realize how much time. I mean, it's a full-time job on your computer as a photographer, as a creative. You get to spend a lot more time in the field than other people do, but you're working for most of it. I mean, you're experiencing, the experience of the hunt, obviously, but there's a lot of back-end work that just be boring. No one wants to see you edit photos and, watch 500 photos transferred to your hard drive. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
so you guys kind of
photography takes a long time. I mean, you jump into film and it's like 10 times longer than that because it's not a single moment in time. You got to watch through. It's not all laid out in front of you. You have to watch through the footage to remember what's there.
I don't think I got what it takes to be a videographer. So I don't got it in me.
Probably going to create a future course on making hunting and or fly fishing films because it's that's another pretty unique category of content that no one's really covered yet. So
do you feel that it's so different that you have to do fly fishing and hunting separate?
Yeah. It's just so unique and different because the pursuit is entirely different. Fishing is like, if we don't get the shot, we'll just go out tomorrow, and we'll go out tomorrow and then the next day. And, it's a confined space of the water that's in the river. And, for the most part, it's the fish taking your fly. That's the most pivotal moment. That's what people crave and want to see. And so, the way that you film, that's different from showing, a hunt's very much about the journey. Fishing can be too, but I don't feel like it's as much so, or it's not glorified as much, where hunting, the journey is a huge part of it. And you get one opportunity, and when you kill that animal, it's done. There's no going back. You can't, if you miss a shot, you missed a shot. It's like, if I miss the eat on a big brown trout out fly fishing, well, we'll just film until we catch another one. Hunting. Yeah, you're so it's just a different mindset. The editing maybe isn't so different, but the filming aspect of it definitely is.
I mean, that makes total sense. Now that, now I feel silly for asking the question, but I'm glad I did.
No, I don't think you should feel that way at all. I mean, I'm sure if you really had the time to sit down and think about it, like asked yourself the question, you probably could have come to some of that, but kind of off the cuff. Yeah, I don't think people would probably think that.
Through your mentorship and kind of teaching some other photographers and videographers, what have you found is the most critical aspect to someone succeeding or someone kind of pittering out, I guess, or ending up, just not making it?
Yeah. What we say in the course is that the number one key to success is hard work. If you don't want to work hard, if you don't want to make sacrifices, you're not going to be successful. Who you know and networking can get you so far. And that's what we say is the number 2 key to success. But hard work, that's how I got to where I'm at. If you just look at business across the board, most people that have found success in whatever it is they do just worked harder than everyone else. And so the guys that are willing to work hard and can, adapt and slowly train themselves to be a little bit more thoughtful about how they go about the craft, they all find success. It's the people that want to do it for the wrong reasons, that don't want to put in the hard work, they're the people that fizzle out and fall off the map.
Yeah. Well,
and,
what? Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it.
Oh, no. I was just going to ask, what are some of as you kind of have come up, what are some of the more memorable shoots that you've had that you can really remember, like learning something from? And what did you, what are some of the hard lessons you've learned over time?
I mean, some of the best days for us were just like the very first days filming fly fishing out on Rock Creek, and we were just 3 college kids, just total dipshits, just classic college bros out on the river. And I can just remember yelling at Travis and Ian and telling them that they needed to take it more seriously, and like if we wanted to work for brands, we can't be cussing all the time, and you just kind of have to cut some of the crap that maybe you do with your buddies out, and start thinking with that business mindset. But those early days where you just went out and had zero plan, you just created and got back to your computer and were like, oh man, this makes no sense. I don't know what I'm going to do with half these shots or photos or any of it. I mean, those are probably the most, important days as far as our like creative process and learning. And you can do a lot of things like this course and internships and mentorships to learn. But at the end of the day, like you have to go out and just create and understand that you're going to fail in a lot of regards. But that's what allows you to grow and allows you to learn more. I mean, it's like having a dog or a kid, I mean, you can tell them a million times not to do something, but sometimes they just have to do it and understand the repercussions for themselves. And same kind of thing applies with film and photography, I think.
Yeah. Now I have a photo that I found of yours that I was curious as to how you went about it and how you got the lighting right for it. And it's, people are not going to feel like this, like, oh, that's not really super outdoors, but I was super interested on it. Cause I know how much light it's a photo of a guy welding something.
Yeah.
And I know how bright, welding arcs get. And I was curious how you went about, how do you set something up like that? Because I feel like it would just completely throw off any settings that you did have.
Yeah, I mean, so with photography, obviously you want to let's say I walk into a shop and I'm going to shoot photos of someone welding. I should have some kind of vision of what it is I want to create, or as soon as I get into the space, I should start looking around. And with photography, we don't focus a lot on the technical skills because that's something that you'll develop on your own. We want people to develop an eye. I mean, the camera is just a tool. And so eventually you want to get to the point where you see a photo, you're like, that's a cool photo. And you just grab your camera to capture it. And so, if I went in to go shoot a photo of someone welding, I'm like, okay, well, the welding's crazy bright. So, my normal settings to capture this environment isn't going to work. So, I need to basically limit the amount of light that's entering my camera. So I would just up my shutter speed, probably is what I'd do straight off the bat, so it's probably shot with a really fast, high shutter speed, which is going to, decrease the amount of light that makes it to your actual sensor. And then a fast shutter speed typically is going to freeze motion depending on how fast the motion is. And so they would probably take and freeze a lot of those sparks and things. I mean, if you wanted to allow some of those sparks coming off the weld to kind of have that trail, kind of that light trail, you could pull your shutter speed back down and, shoot a really high aperture, which basically, is again limiting that light. So there's some different decisions that you can make on how you want to take a photo every time you pull your camera out. So,
yeah. Another one that I thought that really caught my eye was it was an elk, completely, it was framed such that, nothing but snow around him. I mean, you can't even tell, I think, if he's in a snowbank or if he's, on a ridge or what it is. And it's just snow and an elk. And the elk is so vivid against that snow. And I thought that was a pretty interesting photo. And you were talking about an eye for that kind of thing. And, what's your kind of typical when you're out on an elk hunt, or I guess what's the difference in your gear from going out on a hunt out like that to versus fishing? What's, is the gear pack out different? I feel like it has to be.
It is in some regards, but I mean, over time, I guess I've kind of reduced the size of my camera kit. You don't need as much as you think you do. And I think some people get wrapped up in, I want this lens. And you always have a new lens that you want, or a new camera body, or a new piece of equipment. And in a lot of senses, it's helpful, but I've kind of got my kit pretty limited at the moment. So what I take on most shoots fits in a small carry-on Pelican case, and I could take that on a fishing or a hunting shoot. But for me, honestly, I guess if I think about it, and in most day-to-day scenarios, my kit's really probably not too different. I mean, I'll carry a long lens, like a 80 to 200 or 80 to 400 on a lot of my hunts, just because of that wildlife situation where a lot of what you're trying to document can be a long ways away from you. And fishing's obviously typically more close encounters. And so you'd probably use a little bit more wide angle, but it comes down to the photographer and what they want to shoot. I mean, I could go shoot fishing all day on a 200 to 400 millimeter lens and get some great photos. It's just comes down to the photographer and what they want to do. But my kit honestly wouldn't be too drastically different.
Yeah. I mean, so you said that you carry around, an 80 to 200 or 400. What else we finding in that Pelican case?
I mean, right now it'll be like, have a 24 to 120 f4. That's just a super versatile zoom. I mean, it's f4, so it's not great in low light, but it's great for filming and photos in the middle of the day. So it's super versatile. And then I'll either have a 14 millimeter wide angle and or a 50 millimeter prime, and then like an 80 to 400 long lens. And I pretty much have all my bases covered with 3 or 4 lenses. There's some other primes that you can throw in, or like a macro lens or something, but I think people think you need more than you do. If you buy a professional 24 to 70 2.8 lens, I mean, like if you talk to Drake or other people, I mean, there's probably been more published and utilized photos taken with a 24 to 70 2.8 than probably any other lens. So, some people just get wrapped up in the gear and think that that's the defining factor, and it's far from the truth.
Yeah. Just for frame of reference, what kind of body do you shoot?
I shoot a Nikon D850 right now, and I've shot Nikon from the beginning, and I really like Nikons. Sony would probably be what I would shoot if I were to switch makes of cameras. I think Sony does an awesome job, and I've had their cameras in the past, both for photos and video. But the Nikon for me is just, It's the best all-purpose camera. I can shoot video that I'm super happy with straight out of the camera and switch over with the click of a button and shoot photos that are going to be more than enough for anyone that I'm sending photos to. So,
yeah, that was the one thing that I kind of learned about my camera. I shoot a 5100, and it's not as simple as one click of the button over for mine. At least I have to go in and I have to create a couple presets to really kind of help it be better videography. And I don't know if that's something maybe that's necessary, but do you find yourself having to do anything like that from switching over from video to stills?
no, I mean, I think it should save the settings of what you had, what your settings are when you shoot video versus photos can be different. It doesn't have to mirror each other. But I've just used a camera so much, I can switch over and instantly change shutter, aperture, ISO in a matter of a couple seconds and be right in the ballpark to shoot a photo. So unless it's happening crazy quick, I can adapt the settings very quickly and shoot the photo or shoot the video. So
yeah, I always feel like it's so shutter and aperture, like that's pretty quick. You can it's the ISO that kind of trips me up because having to get into the menu, click over and pick one, quick and guess. And it's just, I don't really have the eye for it yet on really judging on what ISO I need or kind of how I'm fitting the shot and whatnot. But I feel like that's the most, at least intuitive for me, is because I have to click a couple buttons multiple times to get in there and access it.
You shouldn't have to. ISO should be something that you can, like I have an ISO button and I'll just manipulate it with the back wheel on my camera. You want to be able to manipulate that on the fly, and it's probably just a setting that you don't have dialed in or don't know about. Because that's really one of the top settings that you should be able to adjust on the fly, especially if you have a Nikon. There'll be that setting. But
yeah, right now I'm pressing the
ISO is really just the sensitivity to light, and it just came from when we actually had to use film back in the day. You would have to buy a certain ISO film for whatever it is you're going to go shoot. So if it was like a super sunny day, I'd go buy a roll of ISO 100, or if I was going to shoot a concert, I'd have to go buy a roll of ISO 1600 or whatever, because you knew I need film that's going to, be more sensitive to light. So basically ISO just really, it's saying how sensitive do I want my sensor to be to light. And the lower it is, the less sensitive it is. And so the cleaner the image is going to be, there'll be less noise. But as you start cranking the ISO up and it's becoming more sensitive to light, it's just, there's creating some more noise in the image because it's kind of, computer generated. And even with film, it would be a little more noisy, grainy image, but you can go pretty high without most people ever noticing that you had to adjust your ISO up. So,
yeah, I always kind of in these conversations, I always learn one little technical thing that I definitely probably should have picked up by now, but back button focus and a couple other things, and now I'm gonna definitely go in there and figure out how I can shortcut ISO settings.
Yeah, I mean, most cameras will have like a couple custom function buttons. That's basically a button that you get to go in and set what you want it to take you to or adjust. The camera, when it comes to you, it'll be set on something, but you can go into the menu a lot of time. I think most cameras probably have like 3 different custom buttons that you can go in and manipulate, if you want one to be white balance or your focus points, or, there's just different things you can adapt it to. So, I kind of would encourage people to try to set up their camera to their preferences when they first get it. It's like one of those things like it's hard, I think, for just about anyone to do. But when you get something, it's pretty nice when you actually read through some of or most of the manual. But for a lot of people,
so hard. You have to,
it's just like, it's here. I'm going to just go use it. Sweet. It's like, well, if you spent 10 minutes and read your manual or some of it, you'd be so far ahead of the game. But that's just one of the things you can tell other people that, and then you never do it yourself either.
Damn it, if you're not the third professional photographer that's told me to read my manual. Maybe that's it. Maybe now I got to go do it. I don't know. Spent a lot of time on YouTube, so I think that's kind of, maybe one of the reasons that I started doing this thing is I like to see things and talk about things, and maybe I'm a bad reader. I don't know, but yeah. So what should people be looking forward to with the hunting photographer coming up in the next maybe couple months or year? Someone's interested.
Sure. Well, I'm actually trying to edit a podcast that we've recorded 7 or 10 episodes of, and so eventually,
what's that? What is that?
It's just we've just podcasted about some of the topics in the course and with some other photographers, and it'll be super informative, and we'll do some more, but it just hasn't been on the forefront of my list of things to get done. So hopefully, for sure, before hunting season, it'll be up, because after that, it won't get touched until next spring if I don't. So that will be coming out, and there'll be a bunch of really awesome free content and insights for people there. We'll continue to put up content through the Instagram page that'll be informative, as well as our email blast. If you go on our website, thehuntingphotographer.com, there should be a pop-up to sign up for our email. And so if you do that, we'll continue to put out some more informative type emails and keep you in the loop on what we're up to. But as far as the course, probably not a whole lot will change. We'll probably try to get out and shoot a few more days in the field where we document how we go about shooting photos. So I shadowed Drake this spring on a bear hunt, and just filmed him going about a day of photographing a hunt. And a lot of the students have really liked that, and we want to do more, but it just is tough in the spring to, really show what we want to show, where, fall, when we have a more diverse opportunities to go photograph hunting, that'll definitely be better. So we're going to try to do that, and that'll get added to the course down the line. But for the most part, it's kind of where it needs to be. And the mentorship time is, equally as valuable as the entire course, I would say. Just gives us a chance to ask you questions and give that guidance, hear where you're at, what you're thinking. If, hey, I want to approach this brand, either really dialing in how you go about it, or like, hey, I know that guy. Like, what do you want to do? Let me make the connection, because a lot of the industry is who you know, and getting your foot in the door sometimes is just a phone call or a text, or, you can do it on your own, obviously, but leveraging people that have been in the industry is a big up. So yeah. And then, as far as the course, I'm going to try to do a video, side of the hunting photographer. And, I don't know exactly what that'll look like, but, I think that'll be super beneficial for a lot of people. And for me, I guess one of the driving factors of all this is just to make the industry better across the board. Giving people the tools to go create that content easier, that is going to shift the perception of hunting and how we go about marketing things. And then also giving people the tools to actually run a business properly, because at least in the photography space, a lot of brands have taken advantage of so many people, and if more people are coming in educated and saying, no, I'm not giving you that for free. Here's why this content's valuable. here's, what I deliver for your brand, it educates more people. And it's like, oh, like we can't get stuff for free anymore. Like there's that, it's a learning on all sides, both from some of the brand perspective as well as the photographers. And so, yeah, it's kind of,
that's
pipeline.
Absolutely. Well, I'll be very interested to hear the podcast as it comes out. Will that be the Hunting Photographer podcast?
Yep. Yeah.
Awesome.
It should. I got lucky and I got the name to all the stuff. So it's not a very tough one to forget.
I was going to say that's impressive that somebody didn't have that trademarked or anything. So
I know. So yeah, and that's just another thing is like when you go into business, I mean, even as a photographer, thinking about what you're going to call yourself and doing the research on the front end of, do I have access to all the names, and how is this all going to look 3, 5, 10 years down the road? So, a lot of people when they start, myself included, didn't think about that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I actually, when I was transitioning out of my current job, about 5 years ago, me and a couple buddies were going to start a brewery, and I thought, oh, the name, that's the most important thing. I went out and I spent like $600 or $700 or something like that on getting the copyrights for the name and learning about all the copyright and trademark laws and It's an important thing, especially in like the fair use trade. But it's something that people don't know a lot about when it comes to business sides. And I think I definitely went about it the wrong way. You don't have to pay. I don't think you got to pay for it right in a way, especially if you're going to be a slow burner. It's you generally have access to that trademark if you're, the first person to be utilizing it in your market. And if you just put in the little extension, or hey, I'm going to file this. I can't remember what that's called, but basically get like a year before, you have to pony up and pay and actually go through the process, but it kind of puts it on file for you. But there's so many things like that. I'm sure that you just have to go through or be mentored on before you can really understand that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's like the value of having a mentor, of knowing people, or I mean, most people know someone that could be a mentor. They just aren't in the mindset of like, oh, I should go ask that person. I just met some veterans the other day that are trying to start a nonprofit. And I was like, hey, have you talked to so-and-so at the other nonprofit here in town? They're like, no. Like, I know him. I didn't even think about that. It's like more the mindset of like, okay, I need to do this. Who could I talk to that I know that like would be educated on this, that could help me out, rather than just like bumbled my way through it, which is how I've done it in the past. I'm smarter now and know I shouldn't do it that way.
There's a certain charm to stumbling through something, but on the back end, you realize. I'm sure. So
and then just for anyone in life in general, I think people should just pursue continuing to develop their skills, whether it's business, whether it's interpersonal skills, relationships, something new you want to do. Just kind of never stop wanting to learn more. I mean, life and business and your career, it should be something that you're always striving to know more and be better at. So, there's probably not a lot of mid-20 individuals that have an actual book on their nightstand or something that they're like doing to educate themselves on any topic. And it just goes a long ways. I mean, it can be a hard habit to get into, but if you can, carve out some time to educate yourself on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis, like it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So if people are interested in the hunting photographer, they can head on over. They can find you on Instagram, Facebook, and then sign up for your newsletter. I know I get your newsletter. You don't post that often to the newsletter, but it does keep you abreast.
Yeah. I wish I had. It's just, you can only wear so many hats. That's the bad thing about being kind of an entrepreneur and running your own business is you have to wear a lot of hats. And so,
yeah. Now I thought it was by design. I thought it was by design. I was like, oh man, yeah, they're the hunting photographer. Yeah, I signed up for that like 3 months ago. What was?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, that's right. So
yeah, it was by design. You're right.
Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. Well, hey, Zack, I appreciate you coming on the show and looking forward to I might here in the future settle down and sit into the course and see what it's all about. And hopefully, if anybody else out there is listening to this and wants a little bit more formal instruction on how to navigate these waters, and you think this is something you're going to do, go ahead, hit Zack up on the hunting photographer. And anything else you want to leave for the listeners?
No, yeah. I mean, if you're interested, shoot me a message either through my personal page or the hunting photographer page. On Instagram, it's the hunting photog. That was the only one that I didn't have the full name. But yeah, if you're interested, message me, because it's always good to have a discussion and make sure that it's going to be a good fit. It's like, as much as I want to sell the course to people, I also want it to be relevant to the right people. So
that's super important. I like that. I'm glad you brought that up. So
absolutely. Well, sweet, man. Thanks for having me on. That was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I ever make my way up to Bozeman to be a groupie up there in the Outlaw, I'll hit you up.
Yeah, we'll have a beer.
Perfect. Or yeah, absolutely. So, all right, Zack, have a good one.
All right, thanks.
Perfect. Or yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks.